I think I also need to say that this friend who came over called Zach, he there was this film that he was watching. So he was talking about AI, and he said that when he was on this plane, someone hacked, or there was someone hacked into his it system, because he was explaining how I was saying how, well, what happens if this technology gets out? What happens if, if he's working on a banking system and it's just created a code, and ChatGPT has just created a code to form this, and how do you know that someone isn't going to like try and hack or ask GPT for the same calculation and then use that calculation to try and log on to the form? And he said that that's not going to happen because the bank that he has huge high security, and there's ways of finding out to see if anyone is logging into the coding system. And he explained that when he was on a plane, um, the there was someone trying to hack into his computer, and when he landed, he couldn't log on to his computer because they had shut down his computer because of this potential threat. And he found that very strange because his computer was actually on, and I think it might have been phone as well, but they were both on plane mode. So there was no internet, there was no like no way of actually turning it off. I mean, I suggested maybe it just closed down the second he got on and got landed, and but yeah, still it would have been on plane mode. So how would it? Yeah, if it was on plane mode throughout the whole time, then how would the computer system be able to go into this computer, realize that something's hacking into it whilst it's in plane mode, whilst it's not connected to internet, and yet still be able to switch that computer into a sort of lock mode? So I don't know technology. I just know that I don't know what really how complex it actually is. And yeah, I feel like there's a lot of things that I don't understand when it comes to technology, and I'm sure that even the people who are creating the machine probably don't really understand how advanced. I don't know. I've been focusing mostly on the dumb side of society because I'm trying to find out like things about me, and Christians are talking about me, only they're not really talking about me, and they're not really saying anything, and it's very confusing. But yeah, technology is just one of these things that I don't feel like I'm meant to understand it. Men, I feel like I have a purpose here, and that's to link people to God, so that people know who the Creator is, so that people can understand the Creator, and can understand also why terrible things happen. There is a lot of evil in the Bible about the population reduction. Now, that worshipping a God like that sounds terrible, but if you knew that actually it was pointing to a time where the Matrix was not going to be able to cope with the number of people and the number of souls, and that some people were just going to be so dumb that they would ask the computer 10 times in a row, "Are you demonic? Are you demonic? Are you demonic?" And yeah, and they're just demonic. Does Even being a demon, do you even know what that means? I mean, there's lions. You could say a lion is a demon because they just go around killing everything. But at the same time, there's a reason for why it does what it does, and therefore, to think that all demons are just evil, I feel like you don't know what a demon is. So how can you say that all demons are evil? I mean, just because you've read an old book and apparently demon is evil. I mean, if you look at what humans are doing around the world, and I mean, there's plenty of sex traffickers and stuff. I mean, would they not be counted as a demon? So why would they be not a demon just because they're human, and yet a demon who you don't actually know anything about? Why would that be more evil than some things that evil people on earth are doing? So to not be able to make the link between something like that just shows how stupid people really are. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to be able to cope with this new world, and they might turn to violence, or become dangerous. They should be allowed to say whatever they want on a platform. Why? Because then you can recognize how dangerous someone is by what they say. But yeah, there's a lot of people that just don't understand things and not ready for this world. And so if you knew things like this, then you might actually be like, well, yeah, I understand why God wants to kill a lot of people, because um, these people, there's a lot of people in the world that are going to be a threat to other people. Hence, and so sometimes you don't understand something, but if someone like me comes down and actually explains it, then you can understand it. And I'm quite good actually at simplifying things into as basic as possible. Of course, I do start saying things wrong because as basic as possible. Is that even? I don't know. Sometimes I say things like that don't sound like the correct way you should, the correct words that you should put it. But whatever. Yeah, I think you can understand me. But yeah. Anyway, we watched this film, 365. Which was something that he was watching just before when he was on the plane. He was trying to watch this, but it seemed a bit saucy or something, he said, so he didn't want to watch it, and then he thought, I want to watch it now, because he was obviously just watching it on the plane. I don't even know how he found this. He found it through just someone telling him before he got on the plane, and it's weird because I was saying how a lot of things that happen to me seem to like even you finding this, getting like spending 3 months working out this chat GPT. Just yesterday I was saying I'm only going to believe in GPT if someone explains it to me, and then what, a day later someone who has been working on it for 3 months explains it to me. I feel like he has been put in that position by my higher self through people, not through technology but through people, to explain to him this stuff so that he can come to me. I don't even know why he's chosen to come to me now and not, because I haven't seen him in 5 years, and he is one of the closest, if I had a boyfriend on earth, based on my life, he's the best option. But of course, I feel like I'm involved in so much more, hence why I can't have a boyfriend. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't see him, because I know he kind of wanted that, and I would have wanted that if I wasn't caught up in this time traveling thing and weird things that happen. He believes that I'm Christ, but on the other hand, he doesn't actually think that something might happen this year. He thinks that I might just be in this position for the rest of my life. And I'm just like, well, if that's the case, then why are there millions of people around the world who believe that Christ is going to come, and if the world is going to see them, and if the world is going to be tested, they wouldn't, billions of people wouldn't believe that if that's not going to happen. And if I'm here and if nothing happens in my lifetime, well, that's not going to happen. Hence, I don't think that, I feel like there's truth and lies in everything, and there is some truth about Christ coming, and he admitted that that's the truth. But he said, well, how do we know it's not going to be another 10 years? I'm like, well, if there's a test about some sort of sacrifice, like I told him all about the sacrifice. I didn't actually need to go into too much detail. I could just say basic things, and he understood. But yeah, if there's going to be some sort of fake sacrifice where it looks like I'm being tortured by people, they're not going to want to do that if I'm a 70-year-old. No one's going to want to torture a 70-year-old. But if I'm looking young and looking a bit stupid as well, like just some sort of potentially just a blonde bimbo, who they might be even jealous of because of me looking a certain way, they'll be far more tempted to go with this and fall for the deception, and then afterwards feel really bad, and then afterwards start going crazy because, oh my gosh, AI is talking to me, and AI doesn't think Hannah's God, neither do I. And then they're going to go, I don't know. I feel like there's going to be a big time of chaos. And I feel like if the mental institutes, however many people there are, I think Christians are mad. Christianity is a mad religion, to believe that God sent his son to suffer and die so that through his few hours of suffering, everyone in the world can be saved and forgiven of their sin. I mean, that's absolutely insane to think that all the things that you do in your life, all the crimes that you commit, all the hatred towards others, all the judgment and intolerance, that can all be forgiven because someone suffered for 3 hours. I mean, that's mentally insane. And I feel like when people start realizing how mentally ill they actually are, the mental hospitals are going to start filling up. They're going to fill up, and people are not going to be able to cope with the amount of mental illness that actually exists. If they knew how much mental illness there is on this planet, I don't think that a lot of people will cope. And I don't know what's around the corner, but something needs to be done, and things need to be kept safe for the smart ones that can cope with the new idea. But anyway, he watched this film 365, and it wasn't, he said it was actually about, he was told that it was about a woman who gets kidnapped and put in some sort of isolation for a year where she's tortured. That's what he was told. It wasn't actually anything like that, because that's why I started talking about this Big Brother thing and how I feel like it relates to me, because I'm going to be put in some situation and tortured. And it was interesting how the two main characters were, of course, Anna, and a woman who was kidnapped called Anna, and Martin, who was her boyfriend. But the person that was kidnapping her was like preventing her from going near Martin. And she did actually meet Martin after there was a time where she was let go for a few days, and she did actually meet this guy. But yeah, she was just yelling at him for cheating on her or something like that. So, but yeah, it's a weird thing. And then, but the thing is, though, it wasn't actually about torture. That wasn't actually, it wasn't anything to do with that. So I thought it might have been to do with like some sort of prediction of some sacrifice, but it wasn't. It was actually to do with her being in this situation for a long time and him not doing anything with her, not raping her or anything. But at the same time, as time went on, humans have sexual desires, and I also know that recently I was saying how, if I'm in a house and I'm not having an orgasm for a very long time, how long can I go before I start wanting it? I don't want sex. I could easily go my whole life without sex. But yeah, going my whole life without an orgasm is probably not something that I could do. And yeah, that film kind of reminded me of me saying that, like, if I'm going to be in some sort of housing, I don't know how long though. It could even be for 3.5 years. I feel like there's going to be a lot of people that don't believe that I'm God, that think I'm the Antichrist, or think that I'm the devil and would want to kill me. And it might be a lot of Muslims as well who think that, because I'm calling myself Allah, well, I'm not calling myself Allah, but because I'm calling myself God and God means Allah, I deserve to die for blasphemy. So there might be a lot of Muslims and Russians as well. I don't know, because they don't accept God. There's going to be a lot of people that want me dead, and I probably need to go into hiding for a very long time. But yeah, if I'm going into hiding, and if I'm also being kind of watched or filmed or like forced to live with her. She lived in a nice house. They put her in a nice house. They had a lovely swimming pool. And I was just like, is that really a kidnap? If you're kidnapping someone and putting them into a really nice house with a really good swimming pool and lots of security, and it didn't actually feel like she was in a prison. It felt like she was actually just kind of, and he treated her fairly well. I mean, it was a bit harsh sometimes, but then she was also not particularly acting. I don't think she acted in a particularly great way. Like, there's a lot of things that I was just, I wouldn't be like that. No, I wouldn't be like that at all. Yeah, it was like she was trying to tease him a lot of the time, and I felt like if I don't think she should do that. I mean, he obviously does have power to control over things, so I wouldn't like tease him. But then again, I am a bit of a tease, so I can tease people, but I do it in a very different way to how she did it. And but yeah, she did give in quite. I probably, because it doesn't even say how long. She could have given in after a week. It doesn't. She did give in, but it doesn't really make it clear how long they were together for before she gave in. And then she started having sex like all over the boat, and it was just like, yeah, that's a bit too much. And then she of course wanted more. It's like, look, you wouldn't just have sex over and over and over and over again and then still want more. But anyway, I feel like that could be just a fantasy version of how people would want things to be with me. Put me in a nice house for a very long time, but it's not going to happen. It's just a film. It's just a fantasy, and but yeah. I didn't like her as well. I thought she didn't say. I think you could have chosen someone who was a bit more but then if that would have the case, then it probably wouldn't have amounted to sex, and then it would have. If you would have used a character that was more similar to me, it wouldn't have amounted to sex. But the character that they did choose, and or the character that they created, should I say, she was pretty. She was a pretty girl, but the character that they created, she ended up dying at the end. But yeah, I don't think that she's anything like me, so I'm not going to read into that. But if people watch things, because my friend was asking me, well, how would this, like, what would be the purpose of this? Like, would the purpose be so that you see it and want to more? And I was just like, no, I don't think so, because they wouldn't have had any idea. It's not even, I think the main language isn't even in English. The one on Netflix is mostly in Spanish. Like, there's lots of Spanish and translation. So yeah, people would have had no idea that I was going to watch that film or that I was going to relate to it. So I feel like most films are actually aimed for the general public. But yeah, if the general public watch that and they try and relate things, like when people realize that I'm Christ and that films and songs seem to relate to me, they might watch all these films and just think, how does this relate to Christ? How does this relate to God? And then coming up with multiple theories as to what the producers were saying or their intentions. And I know he said the film was done 2 years ago, but I don't believe anything when it comes to dates. So it could have been done 2 months ago, and maybe someone knew that he was about to, because when he first started talking about GPT, saying how saying how it's real and he's got evidence of it. My first thought was actually like, oh my gosh, has someone, like, they known that you're coming to me and they've deliberately given you this information? But they did it 3 months ago, so I was just like, well, that can't be true because I haven't seen you in 5 years. Hence, I don't think that they wouldn't have known that you were going to come to see me. He has been talking about coming to see me probably in the last 2-3 weeks, but definitely not in the last 3 months. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I was thinking that maybe someone has tricked him into believing that it's real, so that he would try and trick me into believing that it's real, or maybe someone has got him to watch that film so that I would watch it, and so that I would, I don't know, want whatever happens in that film. I don't want what happens in that film. That's not going to happen to me. But yeah, it's interesting how I can relate. I can relate everything to me, and it's just, people might be not people won't see it because they don't know my life and they don't know what's happening in my life, and they might too think that I've been tricked by this guy when really he knows and watches my videos. And just like, well, if that's the case, then why would he tell me that he doesn't think that I'm likely to get on to Big Brother this year? I mean, that's a pretty hard. If you watch my videos, you know how much I want to get on that show. And so saying that is actually quite a painful thing to think that, that I don't know the future and I don't know if it's going to happen. And I don't know if they're actually going to put that show on if I'm not going to be on it. And yeah, anyway.